M1 Carbine. Designed in 1941 by a Winchester team that included William C. Romer, Fred Humston, and David Marshall Carbine Williams, the M1 Carbine was standardized on October 22, 1941 as the U.S. Carbine Caliber .30 M1 and entered service in 1942. It filled a gap between pistol and rifle intended for officers, paratroopers, radio men, and support troops who found the M1 Garand too heavy for their duties. Production ran through 1945 and exceeded 6 million units, making it the most manufactured U.S. small arm of the war. Known primarily as the M1 Carbine, its family included the M1A1 with a folding stock for airborne units, the selective fire M2 introduced late in the war, and the M3 and M2 fitted with an early active IR night sight used in Okinawa. German paperwork identified captured examples as Selbstladekarabiner 455 AI. Chambered in .30 carbine 7.6 2 by 33 mm, the design is a gas-operated short-stroke piston system with a rotating bolt. Standard magazines held 15 rounds later, augmented by 30 rounders for the M2. It weighed roughly 5 pounds empty and carried an effective combat range of about 200 yards, despite a nominal 300-yard classification. Its closed gas system benefited from the U.S. shift to non-corrosive primers, which kept the piston channel free from fouling that would have plagued older priming chemistry. A curious bit of industrial history follows it. Contractors included Winchester Inland GM, IBM Underwood, and Rock Ola, better known for jukeboxes. The carbine saw widespread distribution in North Africa, Italy, Normandy, across northwest Europe, and throughout the Pacific. Airborne divisions such as the 82nd and 101st favored the M1A1. Rangers and Marines also used it extensively. It offered lightweight and greater capacity than most pistols and some SMGs, though many infantrymen criticized the cartridge's terminal effect in dense jungle fighting. After 1945, the platform remained in U.S. service into the 1970s and spread to allies across Europe and Asia. It served in Korea and Vietnam, then continued in irregular conflicts for decades. M1917 revolver. Adopted in 1917 to meet World War I handgun shortages, the M1917 was built by Colt and Smith & Wesson on large-frame civilian revolvers and chambered in .45 auto using moon clips. Approximately 305,000 were produced in World War I, then refurbished for later service. Many were Parkerized and brought back during World War II. Some resurfaced in Korea and even in Vietnam among tunnel rat teams. The common title, M1917, covered both the Colt new service-based model and S&W's .44 hand ejector-based version. Brazilian contract guns produced in the late 1930s carried crest markings and are often labeled Modelo 1937. Technically, both are 6-shot double-action swing-out cylinder revolvers. Colt's early cylinders required moon clips for head spacing and extraction. Later Colt production and the S&W variant allowed .45 auto to headspace on a shoulder so the gun could be fired without clips, albeit with manual extraction of fired cases. .45 auto rim, a rimmed derivative introduced for civilian shooters, eliminated clips entirely. In World War II, M1917s went primarily to military police tank crews, artillerymen, and support troops. Some traveled abroad through aid programs, including to the British Home Guard and Royal Navy. After the war, they dwindled from U.S. inventories, but continued in South America for decades. Today, both Colt and S&W examples are collectible and remain practical range guns thanks to the availability of .45 auto and .45 auto rim. M1903 Springfield. Adopted as the U.S. rifle caliber .30 M1903 following lessons from the Spanish-American War. The Springfield was a Mauser pattern bolt action built initially at Springfield Armory and Rock Island Arsenal. Early production in Chapter 3003 quickly shifted to 3006, and the rifle remained a main service arm until replaced by the M1 Garand beginning in 1936. In World War II, it persisted in frontline issue when Garands were scarce, and importantly in sniper and specialized roles. Troops referred to it as the Springfield 03, or simply 03. Captured examples appear in German records as Gewehr 249 AA. The rifle's borrowing from Mauser intellectual property led the U.S. government to pay royalties an unusual transatlantic acknowledgement at the time. Mechanically, it is a 5-shot internal magazine stripper clip fed bolt gun with dual front lugs and a safety lug. Standard barrel length is 24 inches with ballistics around 2,800 FTS using 30-06 service ammunition. Wartime variants included the M1903A3 with simplified sights and production techniques and the M1903A4 sniper fitted with optics. The earlier M1903A1 adopted a pistol grip stock. The little-seen Pedersen device once converted certain 03s into semi-automatic pistol-caliber weapons for trench assault, a path not pursued post-war. In World War II, the rifle went ashore with Marines at Guadalcanal and with U.S. Army units across North Africa and into Europe. Rangers and grenade launcher grenadiers often preferred it for roles where bolt gun precision or auxiliary equipment mattered. Allies, including Free French and Chinese forces, received it through Lend-Lease. After the war, it lived on as a drill and ceremonial rifle and remains popular among collectors and in vintage rifle matches. M1 Thompson submachine gun. John T. Thompson's concept took shape during 1917 to 1920, too late for World War I, but perfectly timed for the interwar period. The Thompson's early commercial models became fixtures with law enforcement and infamously organized crime. The U.S. military formally adopted the gun in 1938, and wartime production surged past 1 million units with simplified M1 and M1A1 variants, replacing the complex M1928A1. Nicknames became part of its identity: Tommy Gun, Chicago Typewriter, and Trench Broom. British and Commonwealth forces fielded it early in the war, and it circulated widely through Lend-Lease. Chambered in .45, auto and operating by simple blowback, the Thompson used 20 and 30-round box magazines in service. Drums were heavy and cumbersome for field use. Early models had cuts compensators and finned barrels. Later, M1 and M1A1 versions shed those features for speed of production. Typical cyclic rates ran between roughly 600 and 800 rounds per minute, depending on model. The weapon was heavy by SMG standards, about the mass of a Garand, but offered potent short-range ballistics and controllable bursts. During World War II, Thompson saw extensive use with paratroopers, rangers, officers, NCOs, armored crews, and raiding units. The gun served in North Africa, Italy, Northwest Europe, and the Pacific, where jungle combat favored close-range firepower despite the burden of ammunition weight. After 1945, it continued in numerous conflicts from the Greek Civil War to Southeast Asia. Collector interest today remains strong, and semi-automatic replicas keep its profile visible. An oddity of American firearms policy traces partly to this design. Its notoriety in the 1930s helped spur the National Firearms Act of 1934, which imposed a tax and registry on automatic weapons and silencers. Johnson, M1941. Marine officer and patent attorney Melvin Johnson developed a family of short recoil arms in the late 1930s, including the M1941 Johnson rifle and the Johnson light machine gun. Both used a multi-lug rotating bolt that would influence later U.S. designs. Limited wartime production of the LMG began around 1941, never displacing the BAR but attracting interest from specialized units. Troops dubbed it the Johnny Gun. The 20-round single-column magazine mounted on the left side gave the gun an asymmetrical profile, yet allowed topping off with single rounds or stripper clips. The system fired from an open bolt in automatic and a closed bolt in semi-auto, improving single-shot accuracy while maintaining cooling in bursts. Adjustable cyclic rate settings ranged from approximately 200 to 600 rounds per minute, and overall weight was around 13 pounds lighter than the BAR. The Johnson LMG circulated among some Marine units and the U.S.-Canadian 1st Special Service Force, which appreciated its portability for commando tasks. It appeared with Philippine forces during the Japanese occupation and post-war in regional conflicts. A small number reached irregular users elsewhere. Its mechanical DNA persisted. The AR-15 M16 bolt concept reflects Johnson's thinking. M1 Garand. John C. Garand's rifle finalized in the late 1920s and adopted in 1936 as the U.S. rifle caliber .30 M1 established a new baseline by issuing a semi-automatic rifle as standard infantry arm. Production by Springfield Armory Winchester and later contractors ran to over 5 million units before 1957. The platform displaced the M1903 in most frontline roles and delivered a practical increase in volume of accurate fire at squad level. The M1 is a gas-operated rotating bolt design fed by an 8-round N-block clip that ejects automatically when empty. Typical muzzle velocity with .30-06 ball hovers near 2,800 feet per second. Trained troops sustained 40 to 50 rounds per minute under combat conditions. With rugged aperture sights and bayonet and grenade launcher compatibility, the rifle supported both precision and combined arms roles. Many post-war service rifles, including the M14 and Italy's BM59, descend from it conceptually and mechanically. The rifle equipped U.S. Army and Marine infantry across all major theaters. In North Africa, Italy, Normandy, and the drive into Germany, it gave American units a rate of fire advantage over bolt-action-equipped adversaries. In the Pacific, it served at Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Allied users received it through Lend-Lease. The Japanese experimented with the Type 4, a Garand-like design, adapted to 7.7 by 58 mm, illustrating the concept's appeal. The metallic note heard when an empty clip ejects became part of the weapon's lore, the oft-repeated claim that enemies exploited the sound during firefights. After World War II, the rifle fought in Korea and lingered into early Vietnam in limited roles. Enormous numbers were later transferred to Allies and eventually to U.S. civilians through the Civilian Marksmanship Program. Ceremonial units still carry it, and the collector market remains active. Browning Automatic Rifle M1908A2. John Browning's machine rifle, first fielded in 1918, evolved into the M1918A2 configuration by World War II and served as the principal squad automatic weapon for U.S. forces. While termed a light machine gun in some doctrines, the BAR's role in U.S. tables of organization placed it within the rifle squad as a base of fire. In .30-06, and operating from an open bolt with a rising bolt lock, the A2 variant used a 20-round detachable box magazine and provided two cyclic rates, roughly 300 to 450 or 500 to 650 rounds per minute, via a rate-reducing mechanism. With a 24-inch barrel bipod and accessory furniture, the package approached 19 pounds loaded. The weapon proved reliable and tough, but limited magazine capacity and lack of a quick change barrel constrained sustained fire. Infantry squads in both Army and Marine units integrated the BAR at the heart of their maneuver. The USMC progressively expanded BAR density structuring fire teams around it by 1945. BARs fought in North Africa, Italy, Northwest Europe, and across the Pacific Island campaigns. Its presence often determined a squad's ability to suppress entrenched positions or repel counterattacks. After 1945, the BAR continued in Korea and with South Vietnamese forces in the early stages of Vietnam. It spread widely via aid programs appearing with Allied militaries for decades. M3 Grease Gun. Developed by George Hyde and produced by GM's Guide Lamp Division, the M3 entered service in late 1942 as a low-cost, quickly manufactured submachine gun intended to replace the Thompson. The stamped steel design minimized machining and assembly time, and unit cost during wartime was a fraction of the Thompson's. The M3 is a .45 auto blowback gun firing from an open bolt at about 450 rounds per minute. Compact dimensions, a wire stock that doubles as a cleaning tool, and a covered ejection port tailored it to vehicle crews and airborne units. The 30-round single-feed magazine, derived from British practice, required careful loading, but was robust in service. A suppressed version supported clandestine tasks. Entering combat in 1944, the M3 equipped tank cruise drivers, paratroopers, and many rear echelon troops. It served in France during Market Garden, across the push into Germany, and in the Pacific, where its enclosed operating features coped well with field grime. The simplified M3A1 appeared at the end of 1944, removing the separate cocking lever and easing mag loading. Post-war, the gun reached the Korean Peninsula and reappeared as late as the Gulf War in armored units, before giving way to rifle-caliber carbines. M1917 Enfield. The U.S. rifle-caliber .30 model of 1917 originated as a British design, the pattern 1914 reworked to chamber .30-06 for American production in 1917. Built by Winchester Remington and Eddystone, it became the most produced U.S. rifle of World War I. In World War II, it returned from storage for training and for issue to troops whose missions did not require the M1 Garand. Often labeled the American Enfield, it should not be confused with the British Lee Enfield. Humorously, some Irish users nicknamed it the Springfield to avoid that confusion. The rifle's 6-round magazine offered a slight capacity advantage over many contemporaries, and the dogleg bolt handle brought the knob closer to the trigger hand for quick cycling. Mechanically, the M1917 is a cock on closing Mauser-derived action with a 26-inch barrel and aperture sights that many soldiers praised. It weighs just over 9 pounds, carries an effective engagement envelope comparable to the O3, and feeds via stripper clips into an internal box. In World War II, it equipped artillery and support units, chemical mortar crews, and some rear area personnel. Large shipments went through Lend-Lease to the British Home Guard Canada for training and home defense Free French units and nationalist China. In the Philippines, both Commonwealth troops and guerrillas fielded it before and after the 1942 occupation. Post-war, many rifles were sporterized in North America, sometimes rechambered to Magnum cartridges. A small number still serve in ceremonial roles. The Danish Serious Dog Sled Patrol continues to rely on the design as an Arctic defense gun due to its ruggedness and reliability. Colt M1911, M1911A1. John Browning's .45 caliber pistol entered U.S. service on March 29, 1911, after exhaustive trials intended to replace 38 long Colt revolvers that had performed poorly in earlier conflicts. The design proved durable and reliable, and after incremental refinements, it re-emerged as the M1911A1 in 1924, with improved sights, a shorter trigger, and a relieved frame behind the trigger. By World War II, production expanded far beyond Colt to firms such as Remington Rand, Ithaca Union Switch, and Signal and Singer. Known by many names, Colt M1911 Colt Government, or simply .45, the pistol's wartime designation was Automatic Pistol Caliber .45 M1911A1. German capture codes recorded some Allied handguns, including U.S. pistols. Late-war Volkssturm occasionally pressed captured examples into service. The Singer marked pistols produced in very small numbers now rank among the most sought-after American sidearms. The mechanism uses a short recoil tilting barrel system single-action trigger and 8-part safety architecture that includes the manual thumb safety grip, safety disconnector, and half-cock notch. Standard magazines carried 7 rounds during the period, and typical service loads produced velocities around 800 feet per second from a 5-inch barrel. The ergonomics and trigger characteristics set a template many designers have continued to emulate or adapt to this day. During World War II, it served across all branches Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Army Air Forces. It also found users among British SOE and commando units despite not being a standard Commonwealth issue. After the war, the pistol remained in U.S. inventories through Korea and beyond, and even after being formally replaced by the Beretta M9 in the mid-1980s, modernized variants continued with certain Marine and Special Operations elements into the 21st century. This brings the video to an end. If you enjoyed it, consider giving it a like, sharing it with others who value the study of small arms history, and subscribing for future content. Got a topic in mind you'd like covered? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for tuning in.